It's been less than 12 years since the legendary sketch comedy show MadTV went off the air. During its run, it was often compared to Saturday Night Live, its direct competition. The show was famous for launching the careers of Avery Spears, Jordan Peele, Keegan-Michael Key, and of course, Deborah Wilson. Wilson left the show after its 8th season, but left a mark with her famous impressions of Oprah Winfrey and Whitney Houston. Today on the show, we have our comedy hype analyst, Pierre, and joining us is MadTV alum and legendary comedic actress, Deborah Wilson, to talk about her career, comedy today, and her latest projects. First and foremost, Miss Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It is such a pleasure. Yeah, we're going to clap that up. It is a pleasure and an honor to have.
Blessings, blessings. Thank you for having me, and thank you to John and you and all the Comedy Hype team for allowing this Zoom session to take place. Because I know you've traveled far and coming from the East Coast to the West Coast to make this happen, and I'm doing it remotely with you while you're still here in Los Angeles. So I appreciate you all, and I thank you all for being so gracious to accommodate me and doing it on Zoom.
Of course, it is truly an honor. Now, before we dive into this, isn't the first interaction between you and Pierre. If I'm not mistaken, you two were at least some type a part of the Uptown Comedy Club sketch show, right? Is that right?
She was actually a cast member. I was just a comedian. They highlighted comics sometimes on the shows, and I was one of the comedians. But I wasn't fortunate enough to perform alongside her on that show with her crazy self. I love it. The energy she has is amazing.
Absolutely.
We're always degrees of separation from each other in this business.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Would that be the first time that you two would have met each other?
Well, met, but not necessarily worked together. We worked on the what would I call the hood? I hate to say hood classic, but the hood classic BAPS. And she killed it with I don't know if y'all remember, Halle Berry was Halle Berry and Niecy, or Halle Berry and Niecy. The two characters were flying across country, and they had all that hair in their head. And she was part of that, where she
I was the flight attendant.
Flight attendant, and very funny.
Asked them to just kind of lower their ethnic hair down so that other people can see around them. And a big shout out to the family of Natalie DeSalle, because she has completely passed. So God bless her, and God bless her family in this time. You know, you never stop grieving, but you always keep the memory and the love alive.
Absolutely. Right. What was it like working on BAPS with Pierre, Natalie, just the cast there? What was that experience like for you, Deborah?
Robert Townsend is an amazing director who doesn't get as much credit as larger directors like a Spike Lee. And he was a joy and a pleasure, and he was very accessible and open, because I did do sketch, I did do comedy, improv. And so he was very open to allowing me to continue to develop the character while we were actually shooting. And I came up with ideas and things that wouldn't take it too far and wouldn't distract from what the objective of the scene was, but definitely something that would add on to it, especially knowing I had dreadlocks. And sometimes dreadlocks in society itself, can pose a look.
Right, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
My locks were like locks. They were, you know what I'm saying? My locks were like locks. And so I thought it would be more interesting to play against type.
Right.
By being more mainstream, like really mainstream, and looking at them like they were the fabulous ones that stood out on this flight. And that's how I wanted to play the comedy, because I wanted to make a social statement and put it on its ear.
The famous line, would you mind lowering your hair? Would you mind lowering your hair? Just a tad bit. I love that line. Now, and you know what's a funny
smile as I possibly could.
But as a comedian, I like to tell comics, you don't need a lot of dialogue to come off funny. And I think you did it perfectly in the time you had to deal with. You know what I'm saying? The little scene. You really did. The little nuances, the way you just, smiled, looked, and gave an eye look. A lot of people don't realize that. It takes talent to do that. People think it's just words sometimes. A lot of times it can be facial expressions, the way you look at somebody. And I think you captured it perfectly. Funny. I got it.
Thank you very much. And it wasn't my last time working with Halle Berry. I actually did a red carpet interview with her, and then she was on MadTV, and we did a sketch together as well. So she acted 2 sketches together. No, just one. But and so it was lovely having those opportunities to see her again and have that connection in that moment. Not a friend connection, but that instant we know each other in these moments. We appreciate, recognize these moments with each other because of the moments we've had previous. So that was lovely.
Now, BAPS would come after the Uptown Comedy Sketch Show, correct? So that was your first TV debut.
BAPS actually came after, because Uptown Comedy Club was shot in New York while I was still working for City of New York Parks and Recreation. So I still had a job while I was doing that, while I was doing comedy. While I was in New York, I always had a job. I always had a city job. I worked for City of New York Parks and Recreation for 16 years and still kept my job. I did a series with Joan Rivers.
Yes.
When I was done, would still go back to work.
So how was that, landing your first TV debut role and you still having a job, having to balance that? What was that time for you? Like, 'cause I think now in this time when we see actors and comedians working a job, everybody's like, wait, what? I see them on TV and they're still working a job. So for you back then, did you face any of those challenges, or, just what was that experience like for you?
There weren't any challenges. When I worked for City of New York and Parks and Recreation, the Joan Rivers, and it was called Can We Shop? And it was sort of a side version, or taken from, she always, every time she would come and go, can we talk? Can we talk? I want to talk to you about this right now. You're not going to believe this. And so it came from Can We Talk, which was one of the key phrases she would always use in her comedy. And so it was called Can We Shop? And it was a home shopping show that had celebrities. And in my audition process, I was able to do some improv and meet Joan Rivers. I mean, usually the audition process is not a full-fledged shooting. It's usually you interview, you read, or whatever you're meant to do. But then my interview was shot as if we were actually shooting the show. So Joan Rivers were there. We were on a set in New York City. The producers were there. The cameras were there. And so for me, it was like I had booked this. And because I came from a background of sketch and improv, it was easy to move into that because it already set the stage. It was like the playground was already built for me to play in. And when I was finished, Joan Rivers goes, I like her, hire her.
Nice.
And that's how I got my job. Not only that, but another twist of fate with that was my manager at the time, her name was Joan Rosenberg, but her actual maiden name was, Joan Rivers' actual name, because she was married to Edgar Rosenberg, was Joan Rosenberg. And so that was another connection. So I love seeing these cosmic and universal connections that take place. And so I balanced out the two by running senior programs and budgeting senior programs. And one of my programs was outings for seniors to go see a live taping of a show. Wow. So I was there with the seniors as it was being taped. And that's how I validated that experience, because it was easier to put the two together, fill up her audience at the same time.
Right.
Part of her audience at the same time. It didn't hold water after a while because more and more things and experiences in the entertainment industry kept happening. And I began to realize that I needed to make that choice, whether I was going to stick with Parks and Recreation or whether I was really going to take that path. So once it came to that space, the decision was very difficult. And I eventually made the decision to come out to LA because I already had the job. I did the audition in New York for MadTV. In New York, I still had when I auditioned for MadTV initially in New York, I still had my city job.
Right. I definitely want to get into that because I think, first of all, we thank you for taking that trip to LA and really, diving into it because you're such an iconic, person in this industry. But before we get there, looking back on the role that you played in the Uptown Comedy Club sketch show, how do you think that prepared you for what was coming with MadTV?
There was no preparation. And you know why? It's the same way that even if you have a family member or a loved one who is about to make their transition, you will not be prepared with that type of grief. You don't go, okay, I know I'm going to be upset and I know I'm going to cry. You are never prepared. You are never, and it's the same thing. So in life, so in death. So in life, you're never really fully prepared. Like I knew what I could do and I knew the improv and the sketch thing, and how that started for me professionally is I was in the audience of a club. And I raised my hand because they needed a volunteer from the audience, which is a part of the routine of the sketch group that I found out. And no one else could get up because everyone had, friends and stuff. And I had gone to the High School of Performing Arts in New York City. So for me, it was like, okay, well, this is just going to be fun, and this is just going to be a hot minute to stay in this moment and enjoy it. And I had never done improv at that point. So when I got up on stage, they're like, okay, only 2 rules of improv: yield and don't deny. It's basically yes and. And so I already had the theater background, and I was already an envelope pusher in general with what I did in the programs that I created for Parks and Recreation. Within Parks and Recreation, I was always the different one. I was always the different one. And as you can see, here I am still, even more so, moving into that authenticity of being the different one, not to be different because that's just who I am. That's part of being my most authentic self, and wearing what's already in the inside on the outside. And so when it came to coming to LA, I really didn't want to. I had auditioned in New York. I had a great time. I came out to LA, and I was working on a Spike Lee movie while auditioning for MadTV, and still had a city job. And so when I found out that it was booked, I was disappointed. When I found out that after doing the pilot and it was going to turn into a series, I was disappointed. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. Because
this is MadTV that you're referencing, correct? This is after you get the callback that you received MadTV. It's gonna, and not only did you get the role, but you were the first cast member of MadTV.
I was the first cast member.
When you got the information, you were disappointed. Where were you at that time when you received that information that, hey, you booked it? You booked it.
Well, here's the deal. I had booked the pilot in New York. That was great. And I was very excited because that meant going out to LA again, because they flew me out to LA for the callback, basically, the callback round, and then flew me back to New York so I can get back on set. And so once we shot the pilot, which took 4 weeks, it was incredible because, well, actually, I don't use the word incredible. It was very credible. It was amazingly and fantastically credible that God allowed me this opportunity to go out there, because all I did was take pictures of palm trees. It was my first time. I've always wanted to visit LA. When I watch movies and I go, oh, that's Beverly Hills. Oh, that's what Santa Monica looks like. That's Venice Beach and all those crazy people on the, so all the movies of the 70s or the 80s and the 90s. And I would be like, oh, look at all of it. It's always sunshine, and look at all these fucking beautiful people. And wow, that was my thing. So it was like, I want to visit that. It was Disneyland for adults.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I got out here. We did the pilot, which took a month. I connected with folks. I bonded with folks. I love connecting with people. I really connected with Orlando Jones, beautiful brother. Beautiful, amazing, authentic. It was lovely to see people of color who are really that authentic, and I got a chance to bond with them.
Right.
And then when it was over, it was done. So it was like, okay, back to New York. Because again, up to that time, everything that I had been conditioned to do was, you work a little bit in entertainment, it's fun, it's over. You do this, it's fun, it's over. You got your city job. And that conditioned me to let that be my foundation, and that be what I considered a career, because I knew it was stable. I knew that I would be okay. I knew that I would be able to be tenured in a city position. I knew I would have my dental and my medical. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like it was a security. But coming from a space of low self-esteem, I didn't think anything in the entertainment industry would ever last for me.
Is that why you didn't want, was that the reason you were disappointed when you got the role? Because you thought you were going to lose out on the tenure of the other stuff you did, for like healthcare and all that kind of stuff? Was that what you were worried about?
Yes, that was one. But the greatest reason was because I felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt as if it was too easy. It was bigger than me. It was way bigger than me. And how am I going to handle living on the West Coast? It's one thing to visit. I can be me. It's all good. But now you're talking about navigating a whole different cultural lifestyle in a whole new experience where this is it. As opposed to, you go back to Parks. All the other conditioning in New York was, I was doing independent film in New York. I was doing commercials in New York. I was doing theater in New York. So the gamut of the entertainment industry, the gamut of acting, I would do that and still have a city job. So I loved making that type of money, knowing that one supplemented the other. And one didn't choose one over the other. But here, one has to be it. And in a place in which you are, to a certain extent, beginning again, and journeying your identity in this new place. Mm-hmm. You have new experiences with new people.
But let me ask you one question real quick.
Creating that bond, whether or not that exists or will exist.
Right. Did you see any other actresses that you were going against during that time? Like that didn't, you wound up getting the part. Was there anybody else that you might have saw like, wow, she's auditioned for it, she's auditioned for it? Was there anybody that you remember that wound up becoming, known?
No one of note. No one who was famous. They were all actresses. They basically what they did is they put us in the Fox. They put us in a Fox theater on the Fox lot in Los Angeles, California. And they had at least 100 people there sitting in the theater. Then what they did is they started paring people down to be seen individually and paring people down to do sketch material together. And that's exactly what they did in New York. So now the big paring down took place in Los Angeles. And so we're watching people get pared down. And eventually it was like, okay, such and such, such and such, such and such. Thank you so very much for coming in. You can leave now. You can leave now. It's like, oh, what does that mean? Does that mean they like them and they're leaving so that they can negotiate a contract later on? And they just haven't seen these people, because the ones who left had already been seen. The ones who were staying were the ones who had not gone. So there was no like, oh, we all went, we all came back, and the paring down is like, oh, they don't want those people because we're staying. So people who had auditioned had left, and the ones who stayed had not been seen yet. So there was no believing that they hadn't booked anything. But we watched the paring down. And so I had been paired with Artie Lang in New York. I had been paired with Nicole Sullivan in LA. And that's how I met most of the cast in that pairing.
So after you shoot the pilot, just to kind of lay things out, after you shoot the pilot, you receive sometime later, you receive the news that you got in the role. You feel this
even sometime later. I was leaving to go back to New York going, oh, well, this is not really going to, that didn't last. It was the pilot and it was great. It's no guarantee that it'll be a series. And I was looking forward to going back to New York because, again, that's my home base. That is my foundation. Right. People I know, people I love, neighborhood, family, friends, career, experiences, creatively, artistically, and everything else, because I knew I got theater in New York. I've been doing
how long was it until you received, from the time that you left, how long was it until you received the news?
I received it before I left.
Oh, before you even left.
I was about to leave the place that I was staying and the phone rang. I was about to leave to go back to New York on a late flight before I got that call.
So you feel this sense of disappointment that, oh, now I have to, go back essentially. And once you still have that, you're going through that battle that you talked about, whether, you want to go back home and finish doing what you were doing, or go, take this path to LA. And so eventually you decide to take the path to LA and you land MTV.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a choice. It was one of those things. So the disappointment was, I'm not going to do this. The disappointment was, all right, I'm committed to do this, because when you get a contract, it doesn't hold you for the pilot. It holds you for everything. So when that contract was signed, just to do the pilot and come out here, you are already committed to 5 to 7 years of that show if it goes.
Right. So did that when you came into MTV, did you have a sense of like resentment, or what type of feeling were you coming in? Because it's almost like you're forced. Fear.
And it wasn't because I hated the situation. It's because this situation was amazing and fantastic. I didn't think I was ready for something that much larger than me in this space.
Right.
Did the cast, did it gel instantly with that cast, everybody? Because you're new, you're not really doing this. Some of these are comedians and so forth. You weren't that. Did they gel? Did they take you under their wing? Did they just kind of, you got to do your own thing and hope you fit in, with a fight or flight, whatever that word is. You know what I'm saying? How did you feel when you were in the cast starting to shoot those scenes and so forth?
We were all bonded anyway, because those were the people who were sitting in the auditorium that got the roles. Mary Shear, Nicole Sullivan, David Herman. And David Herman and I did a film in New York, because he's from New York and I was from New York. Artie Lang was there. Orlando, I think, might have been, and please don't quote me, the one who got an offer instead of an audition. I believe, I think that Orlando Jones got an offer to do the show. And everyone else auditioned. Phil Lamar. So at that point, we were all in LA, and we were bonding in those moments because we were the ones that were left. The only one who came in after was Brian Callen, who was a part of the original cast as well. Brian Callen didn't do any of that stuff. They found him in New York on stage doing comedy and went, that's it. We found our final cast member.
Now, one thing that surprises me, Deborah, is the word that you use of fear, like the fear that you felt coming into MTV. Because I feel like, and so many people feel like watching MadTV was fearless about taking risks, really pushing the barrier. And to be an actor or an actress, I feel like you kind of have to have that fearlessness to really dive into the risk that MTV or MadTV was taking. So looking back, why do you think MadTV was able to push those barriers that they did the way that they did it with the people that they did it with?
There are many reasons. And again, fear, doing that professionally was not a fear because I came from improv and sketch. Because when you take on a role, you take on a character, it's a combination of this being that you're creating, holding your hand. And if they're fearless, you have no choice but to be fearless. It's like jumping out of an airplane tandem. You can either scream your head off or enjoy the experience knowing that you're with someone who will help you through it.
Right.
So creating characters and pushing boundaries is very common to me. It's a part of my personality, let alone a part of the comedy that I create or the improv and the sketch stuff that comes out of me. Especially knowing that I do quite a lot of voiceover work, both in animation and in film and ADR and looping, and as well as in video games. So that was my foundation to push into that. So here it was the Deborah fear, not the sketch and improv fear at all. And the reason the show was so bold is the two of the writers, the two executive producers, Fax Barr and Adam Small, came from In Living Color. So they were already pushing social boundaries and political boundaries. And on top of that, MadTV is based on Mad Magazine, which is a pop culture send-up of an iconic magazine. And so it was the prime directive of the show to do that to begin with.
Would you say also the network? I mean, Fox had they were all very edgy. Fox had Married with Children. They had Martin. They had In Living Color. So they already had a basis of, balls to the wall, basically, do what you want to do type of thing. So I think that kind of aided in you guys being able to say what you want to extra, because that was one of the first networks that really pushed the envelope before NBC, CBS, ABC did that kind of stuff. Would you agree with that?
And and on top of that, none of their late night shows did well in the ratings. They had Married with Children for years, but that was, a replay of old shows. And so for a long time, Fox did syndicated stuff of old shows late night, and they wanted to be able to have a show that was like a Saturday Night Live that might succeed. A late night show other than the news and other than stuff that people would normally tune into because they love to Married with Children. They want to see the reruns nostalgically. And so when MadTV came along, there was another sketch show that was in the works that was being produced by Roseanne Barr. And she was still doing the Roseanne show, and it didn't come out in time. And then when she finally got the pilot together, Fox was obligated to air that pilot, and it sunk. MadTV's pilot aired after that, and people loved it.
Now, people, and speaking of love, as you know, people love your roles in MadTV, specifically Whitney Houston and Oprah, I think, are probably the biggest two that a lot of people, are drawn to.
My caricatures of them.
Yes,
and there's a difference between an impression and an impersonation. I did not do them as an impersonation. I did them as an impression. An impression is the social and cultural pop culture send-up of what a lot of people would think and go, yeah, the what ifs. The what if. And it's based on, the news, the media, tabloids. And so that was a pop culture send-up of the what ifs. And it gave us permission to be able to do that so the audience could go like, I would never say that, but yeah, I was thinking it.
Right, I was thinking that, but you said that. So how did Whitney Houston, did you present that, or did the network or producers present that to you?
It was a combination. And the reason it was a combination is because she became a little more prominent in the news with all of the things that were going on. From the idea of the drugs to her relationship and then marriage to Bobby Brown, and then having a child, and then the tumultuous relationship that had been printed in tabloids. So it was a combination of the two. When I first auditioned for MadTV, you have to do, because it is pop culture, you have to do impersonations or impressions. And so when I went in, my impersonation essentially, or my impression was, first and foremost, was Whoopi Goldberg.
Gotcha.
And Rosie Perez. So all of, those things were the prominent ones. Those are the ones I eased into very easily and had fun with very easily and moved through very easily.
So what gave you the courage to take on the Whitney sketch?
There was no courage needed. There was no courage needed. It was, again, I get the opportunity to present this being a certain way that most people are thinking of. And so it was the information and everything was for fodder. I mean, everything is socially, politically. I mean, you think, where do comedians, more than, asking me, you can ask any comedian, where is that coming from? And it's like, well, they put it out there. We get a chance to, mess with it. You put it out there, we mess with it, essentially. Ask Pierre. Pierre will tell you.
You're right. I mean, that's our job. We're comics, we push the envelope. So I agree.
And I think the audience, especially as a fan, we definitely do appreciate it. One thing that always wondered on my mind, and I think a lot of people's mind, is, did you and Whitney Houston ever speak, whether it was, before in preparation or just after getting feedback from her? Did you ever speak to Whitney Houston?
She's too much of an icon. She wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It's not one of those things where it's like, I need her permission or I need to speak to her about these things. No, I watched interviews. I watched stuff on clips, news clips and things like that. But I do recall that someone who had worked with her, who was close to her in her entourage of people, said she thought it was funny.
Did you receive any? Go ahead, Peter.
And again, she was probably
a question, Deborah. Being that you're that long tenure on the show, were there roles of movies that you wanted to go out for, or wanted that you didn't have opportunity because you were working? Any roles that you felt like you wanted to, or were you just so locked into that? Because I remember I did a couple of things.
And it wasn't like I was locked into it. It wasn't so much that I was locked into it, Pierre, more than anything else. I'm the kind of person, in my foundation from where I came from, and that conditioning is a huge part of my personality. Once I'm doing something I love, I'm good. I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like I have to. I'm not trying to further. It was never my intention to further my career, because it was a matter of enjoying the space that I was in, which is why when these shows that I did work on in New York ended, or projects that I did work on, it was fine with me, because it was now being about a part of the journey. So the actor's journey for me was always about stay in this moment, enjoy this moment, bring what you're meant to bring to the table in this moment, and let the moment go for another one coming in. Nice. And so for me, I never held on. MadTV was the first thing that was a hold on. So it was like, I'm not used to that.
Right.
I'm not used to that.
During your time at MadTV and taking on these now that are viral sketches, did you ever receive any backlash? Whether, I know you said you never spoke with Whitney, but whether it's Bobby or just the people in general, did you ever receive any backlash when taking on those roles?
No, because everybody knew. And the one thing I was very, very clear on, that I was playing Whitney Houston in the most caricature way. So you knew it had to push the boundaries of reality. It had to go beyond reality.
Right.
And that was important for me, that it had to go beyond reality, that it could not be that. So I played her, and I specifically say in interviews, I did not play her drug-riddled. I played her disheveled.
Let me ask you a question.
I took certain nuances from her interview with Diane Sawyer when she kind of smiled and then got serious. And then I expounded on that. Everything I did with Oprah was like that, because I did not want to play them as characters. I wanted to play them as caricatures.
But let me ask you a question.
Push the boundaries.
But Deborah, sometimes as artists, when caricatures seem to be sometimes our flaws. And if you accentuate our flaws, I can see artists being upset with you because you're taking the flaw I have or thing and seeing maybe that might be, they might be upset with that point. Did you ever fear that?
No, you can't have fear with what you're doing. You have to stay focused in where you are, as opposed to your head going, what are people going to think in the future about something I haven't completed yet?
I heard that.
So I let that go. I do know, I did hear that Oprah was not pleased. She was not pleased with what I did, and she has a right to be upset, but whatever.
I heard that. There it is.
There it is.
So with your time at MadTV, a lot of people, would see that come to an end after a successful 8 seasons. With you in particular, what would lead to that decision for you?
I recognize that there are people who came in after me. I was a tenured a cast member from the beginning, from pilot, and people were coming in after me, making more than me.
Wow. Hold up.
And when I realized that there was, white male cast members who were coming in after me, making more than me, I went, okay, can we talk about this? And the answer essentially was no.
Wow. Really?
Okay. So I'd hit essentially what I wanted to do and what I wanted to create on that show did not hit a glass ceiling. But when I was told that all the things you want to create and be on the show has a monetary value, and we don't value it as much as the new people coming in, that's when I left.
What? Hold on. What was that? Was the ceiling with the white men, or did the black actors make more than you, male ones, or the white women? Was it just white men were high and the rest of them underneath that?
I don't know, because the reason you don't is because it's technical and legal.
Right.
But I only got wind of one person.
Okay.
Specifically, one person, and so it was like, okay.
I heard that.
So I don't know. I didn't, I can't speak for everybody else, and I didn't need to try to find out because that's illegal.
Right.
But when I caught wind of someone else, and I knew that it was a specific number, and I knew what my specific numbers were, and this person came after me, I was like, okay. And then I said, listen, I'm not going to name names or do anything, but with what I'm bringing to the show and what I hope to continue to do, you tell me I'm hitting a glass ceiling. And it was like, yep.
Let me ask, I just want to be semi-nosy. You can't say no names, but how much more does someone make? Does someone make like 50% more? That person make 50% more than you, or 10% more than you? Like how close, how much was that gap?
Pierre, I love you, but I'm going to tell you that's irrelevant. And the reason it's irrelevant to me is it's not about just dollars and cents. It's devaluing, or what I felt was devaluing of what I'm bringing to the table and can continue to bring to the table. Because 8th season was not a matter of, well, we need to negotiate Deborah's contract, or we're going to let her go, or you know what, we're not thinking about bringing her back. Because at that point, when I started MadTV, up until season 8, name another black woman on the show. I'll stop you right there because you can't. I was the only black woman. By that time, by season 8, they had changed white male cast members sometimes, black male cast members, and white female cast members. I was still the only original black woman on the show.
Right. I
had some value, and they're saying, yeah, but we're gonna not value the creative aspect of bringing you on and giving you money. However, we value you because so far we haven't seen other black women who do what you do.
So your financial value would have been like, as long as I met his criteria, that would have done it. So say he made $100, you made 50. So if they gave you 75, that was enough. You wanted to be the same thing that he had because you value that was.
We're all doing the same thing. We're all bringing all of our shit to the table. My thing is this: we're all bringing it to the table, and even though the contract was not favored nations, even though it wasn't favored nations, once I hit a peak, there wasn't even a negotiation to raise it, let alone to match somebody else. I'll say it again: there wasn't even a negotiation to raise where I was, let alone to match someone else.
Damn, yeah, that's.
I'll tell you this, Pierre. I'll tell you this, Miss Symphony. Had they just said, you know what, Deborah? We're going to raise your salary. It won't match his, but we are going to raise it. I would have stayed.
I heard that.
That's the, and I want to ask, as a black woman in this industry, I think these barriers are not new. This is what we see in this industry for a long time. So just not only for me, but for viewers that are watching, what was it? What in you gave you that courage to walk away from something that you have been a part of for 8 seasons? This is what you know. This is where you're growing. This is, like you said, you poured all your creativity into this show, and now you're walking away because you notice, hey, this isn't, something's not right. I'm not being valued the way that I feel I should be valued. Where did that courage come from, or what in you, that has been instilled in you that it was just like, I can't stay. I have to walk away.
Remember when I told you when I started this business, especially when it came to MadTV, there was fear and low self-esteem?
Absolutely.
Developing the space to feel comfortable with me and finding my most authentic voice to continue to put out the work in a greater volume, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, creatively, in full-fledged version of Deborah, gave me permission to love me and value what I do as a person, as a human being, as a woman, as a black woman. So I went from fear to moving through and transmuting this experience to grow myself and better know myself. When someone knows me less, then it's time for me to leave.
I know that's right.
When someone appreciates me less than I appreciate myself, it's time to leave. And I'm an easy human person. I'm a very easy person. I'm accessible. I'm open. I talk to people. I give out my number. I've Zoomed with people I've never met before simply because I said I made that decision to go, yeah, I want to Zoom with you. Or been the one to say, I'll Zoom with you. I met a fan that I Zoomed with, and I said, okay, Deborah, give him half hour. 3.5 hours later.
Damn! We ain't got 3.5 hours.
I really want to know people's lives. It wasn't about talking about me. I didn't want to do an interview thing. That's not what this is about. Right. This is an interview format with people I want to know about your life, because indelibly, what is imprinted between us is the human condition and the human story and the human journey. And I love sharing that with people. So in my journey, when someone said that image of me from that corporate Fox place or that corporate Quincy Jones, David Saltzman Entertainment, QDE Entertainment, said, you hit a peak and that's it, I can't stop. This evolutionary process that God has charged me with, which is my human birthright and my spiritual birthright, I can't stop this. So if you stop me, I'm going this way. You can't stop me.
Now, before we transition out of MTV, because MadTV, excuse me, because I really want to get into, Deborah Wilson now and what's going on. There was, I think, it seems to be a lot of back and forth about when MadTV ended. A lot of people think it was 12 years ago, and I know we talked a little bit about that. But when exactly did MadTV end? And was there a reboot? What could you clear that up? Because I think so many people are confused, if you will, about exactly the ending of MadTV.
MadTV had 14 amazing, successful seasons from 1995, and Michael McDonald was the longest running cast member on the show. I was the longest running original cast member on the show. I went back and I did a couple of episodes, and then finally, when that cast was over, years went on. There was a 20th anniversary, and a lot of the originals and those in following seasons came back and did that, and Fox had nothing to do with it. By then, it was UPN.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they said, you know what? The ratings on this 20th anniversary reunion went through the roof. Let's air it again and see what happens. They did a rebroadcast, still through the roof. They said, we need to reboot this show. But the originals were on to other things in their lives, and I don't think any of them were interested in doing a reboot and doing the same thing at their age and in their relationships and in their experiences that have moved on.
Right.
So they said, let's reboot the show anyway. And they brought in a whole new original cast. This was the early 2000s. They brought in a new original cast, and they asked the alumni to come back to guest host, to do sketches. And so a lot of us came back to do that.
Right.
And it just didn't work because the audience that knew MadTV, that foundational audience, was hoping that the original cast or those who were in that cast come back. By the time that MadTV hit its expansion for the 14 seasons that it was on, those were the Alex Borstein years and the Will Sasso years and the Keegan and Peele years and the Bobby Lee years. And so people thought, well, those guys are going to come back too. They'll do some of the originals and some of the people from like Keegan and Peele, and that didn't happen. It was a whole new cast. And I think people who were fans of the show as it spanned those generations or spanned that time period, which was over a decade at that point, were disappointed that they weren't getting what they wanted, and they didn't give the show a chance. Plus, the new reboot, which was on UPN, was trying to find balance where they were schedule-wise. And it just didn't last. It just floundered. But everyone on that show at that point, even though they were all new, were absolutely phenomenally funny and talented. The show was hilarious. Fans didn't give it a chance.
Do you stay in contact with any of those people, like any of the cast members? Do you stay in contact with any of the former cast members? And if you do, could you tell Ari Spears to chill out a little bit?
I don't keep, believe it or not, the cast member, I know more of the crew.
No.
Because to me, everyone was a family. And from the beginning of the show to the very end, including the reboot, I was always the matriarch. I was the oldest cast member. When it was a reboot, I was the oldest cast member with the original, and I was the oldest cast member even after I left. And so I always considered myself the matriarch, and everything and everyone was family, including crew. And so I know and kept in contact with more crew members than I did with cast members, because everyone does their own creative thing and they go on, and everybody's relationship is different.
Right.
So sometimes the dynamic aspect of a relationship is based on business and because of circumstance. And most people were circumstantial, except for one. Jill Michelle Melian was the first Latina who came on the show. She did only one season. And she and I are sister goddesses to this day. She is my sister goddess to this day. And she's a brilliant stand-up as well.
It's beautiful when you can walk away from a situation and still have family, essentially, that you've worked with so long. So after coming out of MadTV, you transition. What does that look like for Miss Deborah Wilson? What does after MadTV life look like for Miss Deborah Wilson? I know you got into voiceover and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit about that? After
MadTV was a spiritual transition. God said, I have a different plan for you and your life. I want you to be obedient to my will. And I'm going to take away the things that are a distraction, that are pulling your attention and focus from what I want for you and how I want you to draw closer to my will and my word. So you're going to get married and divorced. You're going to have a home that you can no longer afford. And you're going to flounder in what you considered a career. And you're going to give them up to me. You're going to let them go and give them up to me. And in the process of letting them go and giving them up to me, you're also going to learn and condition yourself to give up your worry.
Wow.
Fear.
Nice.
You're presenting yourself as these things: a wife,
right,
a homeowner, an actress, a comedian. You're going to give up all of those things that are titles. You're going to let them go, and you're just going to be my child for a while. And I'm going to you're going to allow yourself, you're going to allow the world to put fear in you, and you're going to hold on to that with your linear thinking. And I want you to build that up enough that you're never going to be married and never going to be loved, that you can never be a homeowner again, that your career is over. I want you to hold on to that until it becomes such a burden that you have no choice but to give it over to me.
Nice.
And then I'm going to continue, as you and I conspire in your favor, to rebuild the truth of my love within you from the inside out. And you are going to hold in your heart such a value and a truth to who you are, and build your authenticity, not based on the improv and the sketch and the things that you grew about who you were on MadTV and letting go when they didn't value you. That's the outside. I'm going to help you continue to value the truth of my word within you and Holy Spirit within you, to value the inside. Thus, when you know that truth, there is nothing that any human being can ever take away from you that will take away the value that I have stored in you with my word and my will as the Holy Spirit within you. So nobody could take away a career because you gave it up. Nobody can take away your husband because you gave it up. Nobody can threaten to take away your property because you gave it up. It is my will that I give it back to you.
I'm not
sure. Let me ask you now. I think I think a lot of people are gonna love just hearing from you, and not only hearing but feeling that. Before I let you leave out, in addition to that, we're in a time where social media is big. Like you said earlier, a lot of people want to stay in tune with you, who they saw on MadTV, who they see in different interviews and sketches and things like that. So, and a lot of people don't have that accessibility to you. A lot of people, have to go back and try to find what they can, but a lot of people do want to have some type of connection to you because maybe you've left an impression on them, whether it's, in a sketch or in an interview, right now after seeing this. So directly to your fans and to people that may watch this, what is something that you may want to leave them with so that they can carry that on from this moment on?
Be blessed, be well, be happy, be healthy, but most importantly, and most especially, be you, because you are beautiful.